Robert Louis Stevenson. Treasure Island.
Chapter 33. The Fall of a Chieftain. There was never such a sudden change in the world. Each of the 6 men looked as if he had been struck. But with Silver, the shock passed almost at once. All his thoughts had been fixed completely on that money, like a racing horse. In 1 second, it was all gone. But he kept calm, controlled himself, and changed his plan before the others even understood what had happened. "Jim," he whispered, "take this and be ready for trouble." And he gave me a double-barreled pistol. At the same time, he began to move quietly to the north, and in a few steps he had placed the pit between us and the other 5 men. Then he looked at me and nodded, as if to say, "This is a dangerous situation." And I thought the same. His look was not friendly, and I was so angry at his constant changes that I could not stop myself from whispering, "So you have changed sides again."
There was no time for him to answer. The pirates, shouting and swearing, began to jump one after another into the hole and dig with their hands, throwing the boards aside. Morgan found a piece of gold. He held it up and shouted with many curses. It was a 2-guinea coin, and it passed from hand to hand among them for about a quarter of a minute. "2 guineas!" shouted Mary, shaking it at Silver. "Is that your 700,000 pounds? You are a fine one for making deals, aren't you? You are the man who never makes mistakes, you stupid fool." "Keep digging, boys," said Silver calmly and with a mocking tone. "You may find some small nuts. I should not be surprised." "Small nuts!" repeated Mary with a scream. "Mates, do you hear that? I tell you, that man knew everything all along. Look at his face, and you will see it written there." "Ah, Mary," said Silver, "trying to be captain again. You are a very eager young man." But this time everyone agreed with Mary. They began to climb out of the pit, looking back with angry faces. One thing I noticed, which was good for us. They all came out on the opposite side from Silver. So there we stood, 2 on one side, 5 on the other, with the pit between us. And no one brave enough to make the first move. Silver did not move. He watched them, standing straight on his crutch, and looked as calm as ever. He was brave, no doubt about it. At last, Mary seemed to think that speaking would help. "Mates," he said, "there are 2 of them there alone. One is the old cripple who brought us here and led us into this mess. The other is that boy, and I want to kill him. Now, mates." He was raising his arm and his voice, clearly ready to lead an attack. But just then, crack, 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 3 gunshots came from the bushes. Mary fell head first into the pit. The man with the bandage spun around and fell to the ground, dead but still moving. The other 3 turned and ran away as fast as they could. Before you could blink, Long John had fired both barrels of his pistol into the struggling Mary. As the man rolled his eyes at him in his last pain, "George," he said, "I think I have finished you." At the same moment, the doctor, Gray, and Ben Gunn came out from the nutmeg trees with smoking guns and joined us. "Forward!" cried the doctor. "Very fast, my lads. We must reach the boats before them." And we ran as fast as we could, sometimes pushing through the bushes as far as our chests. I can tell you that Silver tried very hard to keep up with us. The effort that man made, jumping on his crutch until the muscles of his chest were almost bursting, was more than any healthy man could have done. And the doctor thought so too. Still, he was already 30 yards behind us and almost unable to breathe when we reached the top of the slope. "Doctor," he called, "look there! No need to hurry." And indeed, there was no need to hurry. In a more open part of the plateau, we could see the 3 men still running in the same direction as before, straight toward Mizzenmast Hill. We were already between them and the boats, so the four of us sat down to rest, while Long John slowly came up to us, wiping his face. "Thank you kindly, Doctor," he said. "You came just in time, I think, for me and Hawkins." "And so it is you, Ben Gunn," he added. "Well, you are a clever one, that is certain." "I am Ben Gunn," replied the Maroon, moving nervously with embarrassment. "And," he added after a long pause, "how do you do, Mr. Silver?" "Very well, I thank you, you say." Ben, said Silver quietly, "to think what you have done to me." The doctor sent Gray back to get one of the pickaxes that the mutineers had left behind when they ran away. Then, as we walked slowly downhill toward the place where the boats were, he told us in a few words what had happened. It was a story that interested Silver very much, and Ben Gunn, the half-mad Maroon, was the hero from beginning to end. Ben, during his long and lonely time on the island, had found the skeleton. It was he who had taken things from it. He had found the treasure. He had dug it up. It was the handle of his pickaxe that lay broken in the hole. He had carried it on his back in many long and tiring trips from the foot of the tall pine to a cave that he had on the two-pointed hill at the northeast corner of the island. And there it had been kept safe for 2 months before the arrival of the Hispaniola. When the doctor had slowly learned this secret from him on the afternoon of the attack, and when the next morning he saw the anchorage empty, he had gone to Silver. He had given him the map, which was now useless. He had given him the supplies, because Ben Gunn's cave had plenty of salted goat meat. He had given everything to get a chance to move safely from the stockade to the two-pointed hill, where they could be safe from disease and watch over the treasure. "As for you, Jim," he said, "it was hard for me, but I did what I thought was best for those who did their duty. And if you were not one of them, whose fault was that?" That morning, when he saw that I would be part of the terrible surprise he had prepared for the mutineers, he had run all the way to the cave. He left the squire to guard the captain, took Gray and the Maroon, and set off, crossing the island to reach the pine in time. Soon, however, he saw that our group was ahead of him, so Ben Gunn, who could run fast, was sent forward alone to do what he could. Then the doctor had the idea to use the superstitions of his former shipmates, and he was successful enough that Gray and the doctor arrived and were already hiding before the treasure hunters came. "Ah," said Silver, "it was lucky for me that I had Hawkins here. You would have let old John be cut to pieces and never thought about it, Doctor." "Not at all," replied Dr. Livesey cheerfully. By this time we had reached the boats. The doctor used the pickaxe to break one of them, and then we all got into the other and set off by sea toward North Inlet. This was a journey of 8 or 9 miles. Silver, although he was already almost exhausted, took an oar like the rest of us, and we soon moved quickly over the calm sea. Soon we passed out of the narrow passage and went around the southeast corner of the island, where, 4 days earlier, we had pulled the Hispaniola. As we passed the two-pointed hill, we could see the dark entrance of Ben Gunn's cave, and a man standing by it, leaning on a gun. It was the squire. We waved a handkerchief and gave 3 cheers, and Silver's voice joined as loudly as the others. 3 miles farther, just inside the entrance of North Inlet, we saw something surprising. The Hispaniola sailing alone. The rising tide had lifted her, and if there had been strong wind or a strong current, as in the southern anchorage, we would never have found her again, or we would have found her destroyed. As it was, there was little damage except for the broken mainsail. We prepared another anchor and dropped it in shallow water. Then we all rowed back to Rum Cove, the nearest place to Ben Gunn's cave. After that, Gray returned alone with the boat to the Hispaniola, where he was to stay on guard during the night. A gentle slope led up from the beach to the entrance of the cave. At the top, the squire met us. He was warm and kind to me, and said nothing about what I had done, neither blaming me nor praising me. When Silver greeted him politely, the squire became a little red in the face. "John Silver," he said, "you are a terrible villain and a liar, a complete liar, sir. I am told that I should not take you to court. Very well, I will not. But the dead men, sir, will stay with you like heavy stones." "Thank you kindly, sir," replied Long John, bowing again. "I dare you to thank me," cried the squire. "This is a serious failure of my duty. Stand back." And then we all went into the cave. It was a large and airy place, with a small spring and a pool of clear water, covered by ferns. The ground was sandy. Near a big fire lay Captain Smollett, and in a far corner, only partly lit by the fire, I saw great piles of coins and stacks made of bars of gold. This was Flint's treasure that we had come so far to find, and it had already cost the lives of 17 men from the Hispaniola. No one could say how many lives it had cost to collect it, how much blood and suffering, how many ships had been sunk, how many brave men had been forced to walk the plank blindfold, how many cannon shots, how much shame, lies, and cruelty. And yet, there were still 3 men on that island, Silver, Old Morgan, and Ben Gunn, who had all taken part in these crimes, and who had all hoped, without success, to share in the reward.
"Come in, Jim," said the captain. "You are a good boy in your way, Jim, but I do not think you and I will go to sea again. You are too lucky for me."
"Is that you, John Silver? What brings you here, man?"
"I have come back to do my duty, sir," answered Silver.
"Ah," said the captain, and that was all he said. What a supper we had that night, with all my friends around me. And what a meal it was, with Ben Gunn's salted goat meat and some special food and a bottle of old wine from the Hispaniola. I am sure people were never happier or more cheerful. And there was Silver, sitting a little away from the firelight but eating well, ready to jump up when anything was needed, even quietly joining in our laughter, the same calm, polite, and obedient sailor as he had been at the start of the voyage.